There he is, Supercross champ. Chase Sexton wins in Denver to stamp his authority on this Monster Energy AMA 450 championship. Jett wins Moto 1. The perfect season continues. 21 for 21. One down. One to go. Perfect season for Jett 22-0. Jett Lawrence has done it and is the inaugural SMX World Champion.
Yeah, we're back. Welcome to a silly season recap episode of SMX Insider. Jason Weigandt and Jason Thomas here. We're going to run you through the changes, and we knew this was coming. 2022, if you remember, that was dominated by team switches. Eli Tomac from Kawasaki to Yamaha improved. Jason Anderson actually also improved by going to Kawasaki, the team that Tomac left. And Malcolm Stewart got third in Supercross points, switching from Yamaha, Husqvarna. All this to say that we knew when contracts would be up for 2024, some big hitters would see that and say, I need to do the same thing. So, JT, you've been through the bike team switch thing before. What do you think the likes of Chase Sexton, Cooper Webb, who are our big movers for the upcoming season, were probably thinking as they started this journey?
Well, I think for them, it was a bike chassis thing. We heard them talking, and behind the scenes, you hear the whispers of the things they don't like about their individual motorcycle. And that's always in the eye of the beholder. You know, if you ask Jett Lawrence, is he struggling with the same things that Chase Sexton was on the Honda, he would probably shrug his shoulders, right? Because it's just an individual type thing. But as a rider, this is a very unique time because you're working with a different motorcycle, a different staff. You're trying to learn the nuances of that team and how to communicate with them. And all of that has to be dialed in just 2 months from now as we roll into Anaheim in January. So it's a busy time, it's an interesting time, and I think for the sport, it adds a lot of context because at the very top of the leaderboard, we're seeing riders shift teams.
All right, we'll run down those two big movers, Webb and Sexton, and many other changes during this offseason throughout this episode. Okay, let's start this rundown with Kawasaki. First, their 250 lineup, Monster Energy Pro Circuit Kawasaki, and the big changes there. Levi Kitchen is in, and this was a late deal. We heard about it all summer. Was it going to happen? Was it not? In the end, Max Vohland goes over to the team as a 5th member, and the young talent of Jett Reynolds and Ryder DeFrancesco, who were prospects for Kawi for a long time, are out. So let's start with Kitchen. I really feel like he's knocking on the door. He could become the guy in this 250 class, but JT, he's leaving Yamaha, which has been the strongest 250 team for a long time.
Yeah, it's an interesting move all the way around, and I think it was a coup. This was a coup for Mitch Payton and his squad, and also a very interesting decision, as you mentioned, for Levi Kitchen, because most riders do not want to leave that team and maybe just the motorcycle itself. But if you're Mitch, you have to be smiling because, as you also said, Levi looks like he is on the precipice of getting on a streak here. If you looked across the landscape and said, okay, who can come in and fill the void of a Hunter Lawrence? Who could get on a winning streak here and become the guy? It could be Levi Kitchen. And it's really just finding consistency for Levi, because he would go out and win a moto and you're like, there it is. That's the guy we're all looking for. But then he would follow that up with a ride like he had at Budds Creek where everybody's scratching their head and he's riding around in 12th place. So I think for 2024, if Levi can find that consistency, he could become a champion. And for Max Vohland, I think this is a very pivotal time in his career because, yes, he did step away from Red Bull KTM, but it wasn't a sure landing spot at Pro Circuit Kawasaki. He had to kind of search around, find the right home, because I think everybody's kind of wondering what the future holds for Max Vohland. They know potential is there. They know the talent is there, but the results are fleeting. He really hasn't blossomed into the rider that many people pointed him into becoming.
Returning to that team, Austin Forkner, Cameron McAdoo, and I mean, it's a story with all those guys on that team. They just got to stay healthy. Same thing with Seth Hamaker. If they can stay injury-free, they're going to win some races. Now, let's go to the 450 side. It doesn't look like there's a change because it's still Adam Cianciarulo and Jason Anderson who are already on the team, but it is a change because Anderson's deal was up. His 2023 season was not as good as 22. So refreshing to see this kind of loyalty from rider to team. They gave him a new deal anyway.
Well, I think they're hoping that Jason Anderson gets back to his 2022 form, because I don't think there was any question about whether that was a successful a team and a whole dynamic that they had going on over there. But they need to find whatever that fire was, and whether that was inside Jason Anderson personally, or whether that was a setting that they got away from, whatever that was. If they can get back to that place, then everybody wins, including Jason Anderson. And then for Adam Cianciarulo, I think this was a successful season. And what I mean by that is everybody was just asking to get through all the races. Just make it to each weekend, race through every Saturday night, and let's see where we end up. Now, we know he's fought through this arm issue, the shoulder issue that causes him to lose grip strength, and that late in some races, we see him move backwards in the results because of that. But I think just to finish the season was the first step. Now, if they can find a solution to that, get some of that strength back and build off of this, use this as a platform to catapult off of, then I think that's a great next step. But mission accomplished, I think, for Adam Cianciarulo. Just let's see it all the way through to the finale in Los Angeles.
And one more thing, that is an all-new bike for that team. Rave reviews over in Europe, where Roman Fevra won a whole bunch of MXGP races on a prototype of that bike throughout 2023. So we'll see how it performs in Supercross. Now moving on to the Monster Energy Yamaha Star Racing Team First 250 class. Who would have thought a year ago, JT, we'd be talking about Haiden Deegan as a title favorite, regardless of what coast he races in Supercross, and definitely going into Pro Motocross as well. I don't want to say he's the team leader, because these 250 teams don't like setting up that way. They just give everybody the same shot, but it's impossible to not talk about Deegan going into 2024.
Well, watching him at the Futures round last year, to see the progression throughout the year, and I'll say it, I think he is the team leader now, you know, de facto, if anything. And I think he is who that team has their hopes pinned on. You know, if they're looking at one guy who's going to carry us through the next several years and give us the best chance at championships, how could you not think it's going to be Haiden Deegan? And I think he's living up to it. He has been a phenomenal success story all year long. There's so much around it, his family legacy, and he was so close to winning that Pro Motocross Championship, and then he did seal the deal winning that Super Motocross World Championship. So yeah, I think there's a lot around it, but I think it's well deserved.
Yeah, and then in typical Star Racing fashion, they are not afraid to just grab any opportunity anywhere and see if it hits. And Enzo Lopes, the rider out of Brazil, is the latest there. Really good with the Muck-Off Club MX Yamaha team last year. He had re-signed actually with the club for 2024. Star wanted him, so he had to actually pay a termination clause to get out of the club deal and go to Star. But look, it's Star Racing. It's a factory team. He has to go for it. We know Enzo has talent and ability, but at the same time, this team's pretty ruthless. He's going to have to perform. This is his shot.
Well, I think this is what makes that Levi Kitchen decision so interesting. You see the lengths that Enzo Lopes was willing to go to get onto this team and to get onto that motorcycle because of the opportunity that it gives you. You know, most of these riders would consider that the most potent machine on the starting line. And it's going to be interesting to see what Enzo does with it, because I think he exceeded everyone's expectation in 2023. He was in the fight to win races when most people, I don't think, expected that at all. So it's going to be, he's a wild card, right? We know it's going to be fast, but can he take that next step? Can he truly be a championship contender in 2024 aboard that motorcycle?
And Star, as always, a very big team, a lot of returning names over there. We'll talk about that in a season preview show coming up closer to Anaheim. Let's switch to the 450 class. And this might not be new, but it's still big news because Eli Tomac will be back, first returning from the ruptured Achilles. But remember, we thought 2022 or 23 could be retirement for Eli. So he did sign a new deal, at least for Supercross, maybe for the entire SMX campaign. But just getting Tomac back is big news, even if it's the same team.
Yeah, and it was a great thing to see Eli riding earlier than what I think even his team expected, because both you and I spoke with his team manager, Jeremy Coker, at the opening outdoor Pro Motocross Championship round of the year. And they said probably riding in November sometime. So to see him riding a month earlier than that was a great sign. I think it's going to give him such a better chance to be better early. And that's really important. Can he be strong early in January so he doesn't give up a huge points gap in that first month of the season? That will set him up for a much better championship run late.
Okay, so let's move to the Cooper Webb scenario. We talked about it a little bit at the top of the show, why he might have wanted to switch. I just don't feel ever that it was a great personality mesh with Webb and KTM, even though they had success winning 2 Monster Energy Supercross titles. He's kind of a rough around the edges, likes to be the underdog, likes to play the mind games. I feel like KTM is more of that Ryan Dungey. You carry yourself like a champion. You don't get involved in that kind of drama. I think personality-wise, this is a much better fit for Webb. And we know this because he used to race for Star in his 250 days, and that was very successful. I think the thing that everyone is wondering, JT, is, wait, they're going to have Webb and Tomac? They were 1 and 2 in points last year, most of the season. They're going to be teammates? How can this work? Do you think there's an issue there?
I don't think there will be an issue there. These are consummate professionals, and I think they will approach it that way. But I do so much agree with what you said, because these two teams feel very different. Monster Yamaha Star Racing owner Bobby Weigandt is brash. He does things his way. He doesn't care what you think. And that is Cooper Webb in a nutshell. So that seems like it fits very well. KTM is all about team unity, and they do everything together. And it's just a completely different approach to the same end goal, which is winning races and championships. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But I do agree, this is a team where Cooper Webb had a ton of success on the 250, and now he gets to return. And I think in his mind, he's going to be going into this saying, yes, this is how it all aligns. I made strides through the Supermotocross World Championship playoffs. I got better each round, and wait till you see me in January.
And one other move over there, Justin Cooper going from 250 to 450 with this team. I was kind of bummed all year that we weren't hearing much about Justin Cooper's future. I feel like he's done very, very well throughout his pro career. I don't know why he wasn't higher on anyone's list to hire. Credit to Yamaha for adding a 3rd spot to get him on the team full-time 450. And look, we don't know if Tomac's going to race the whole season. Cooper Webb outdoors has never been as good as he is indoors on a 450. This Justin Cooper thing, we could be in July or August, JT, saying, brilliant, this guy's up front, this guy's good. I think he's very underrated. And I think this is a good move to bring him up.
I agree. And you look at Justin Cooper's stats over the years. He won the 250 Regional Supercross Championship. His Pro Motocross Championship results alone, the speed he displayed along the way in those races too, for him to not have a ride or wonder where he was going to be was incredible. And I think we have to give credit to the aforementioned Bobby Weigandt, because speaking to people behind the scenes, Bobby was responsible for making sure that he was a part of this team. He had to front a lot of the money in 2023, and I think he was very involved again in that in 2024 to make sure he's a part of this team. So I think Bobby believes in him, and I think he should believe in him. Justin Cooper has a bright future, and I think he surprised a lot of people in his limited Supercross run in 2023.
So let's talk about Suzuki now. And there's really only one thing to talk about, and that's Ken Roczen. Look at the graphic we put on the screen. Just one giant Ken Roczen block. Shane McElrath actually will be back with the team. He did ride for them as a fill-in, and he'll be back again. We're here as another 450 rider in 2024. And Kyle Chisholm stays with the team. He's kind of both racer and helping develop the motorcycle. But it's really about Roczen, both single-handedly rebuilding the fortunes of Suzuki and building the fortunes of this Pipes Motorsports Group team, which had never won before. Unbelievable now that any race Roczen shows up for, there aren't even questions anymore. He's right back to where he used to be. He could win anything at any time.
Yeah, and it just feels very different than it did a year ago. We were hearing he was putting a Suzuki program together, and we weren't sure. Just the timing felt weird. He was going to be very late no matter what, and testing was going to be behind. That typically doesn't lead to good results. And I thought that's the way it looked in January. He did not look like the Ken Roczen that I'm used to watching. The flowing, always comfortable, just redefining physics, the way things that happen on a motorcycle. He just looked uncomfortable. And I think that was a progression throughout the season. He really started to find his stride, wins that race in Indianapolis. That was one of the feel-good moments of the year. And then he takes Jett Lawrence to the ropes in the Supermotocross World Championship. Of course, Chase Sexton was a part of that, but Kenny, going in, I don't think anybody was expecting him to really be the guy to maybe take this away from Jett Lawrence, and he was. So everything around this program for Ken Roczen, for that team, and for Suzuki feels different in a positive way. And going into Anaheim, where I thought there was no way, no chance Ken Roczen could win the opener, I don't feel that way now. If you told me that we were going to leave January and Ken Roczen was a player with a race win already, I would say absolutely. He has been that guy for quite a while now.
On to Team Gas Fun Fun, the Troy Lee Designs Red Bull Gas team. What they have done is picked up Ryder DiFrancesco, longtime Kawasaki prospect. Kawasaki was done with him. I guess they don't think he has it, and Gas more than happy to snap up a rider who has some real talent. I know it wasn't Haiden Deegan level as a rookie. He hasn't raced Supercross yet, but we all know there's some ability there with Ryder D.
Yeah, it's great to see him get another shot at this, and kudos on that video. That was phenomenally well done. They set the bar for new team additions there. But yeah, we'll see what a new year brings for Ryder. Sometimes change is for the best. You know, he's been with Team Green and then Monster Energy Pro Circuit Kawasaki for his entire career. So changing motorcycles, changing chassis, changing people around him, all of that might be for the positive. And yeah, just kind of rekindle. And also it could be just a wake-up call. It's like, hey, he's had incredible situations in his entire career, going back from amateur and now early years as a pro. Sometimes it can be a wake-up call. Hey, we have to start performing or things are going to get much more difficult.
That's true. It's a slap in the face when your old team says, nah, we're good. And Pierce Brown might be in that same situation for this team. He's been there a while, still waiting for the breakout ride, that first win. Maybe that comes in 2024. Looking at the 450 class for the team, no changes. And why would you make changes? If you think back to Monster Energy Supercross in 23, there were multiple nights where Justin Barcia might have been the fastest rider of all. I don't know if I've ever said that about Justin Barcia, maybe in his rookie year, which is a decade ago. If he can find that magic again, JT, let's not forget how awesome Barcia was before he got hurt at Nashville.
Yeah, he was really riding well, and to see him get injured at the finale, he had such a tough time getting healthy and getting back to form, and he found it. He looked like he wanted to try to go win that individual moto there, and it just didn't come together. He re-injures his collarbone right before he sets to go on a trip and do things with the family. So it's not the ideal setup going into the off season. I think he has enough time to get back to full strength going into Anaheim, but he just feels like the right fit for this team. So it's kind of a no-brainer to see him end up there. He's had so much success with them. But yeah, that's the one thing. If you're not in championship contention going into the finale, is just stay healthy. And unfortunately, that was not the case for Justin Barcia.
Now, one other piece of this team, Barcia has signed a new deal. He is back for the next 2 years, but this Jorge Prado rumor won't go away. Prado is the new MXGP world champion in motocross in Europe, but he spent the winter here riding Supercross for a few weeks, and he is a gas rider, and he keeps teasing how much he'd like to race Supercross somewhere down the road. It won't go away.
I think he's wanted to come stateside for a very long time, and I think the one caveat that kept him from doing that was that elusive MXGP World Championship. He wanted to win that, and I think he felt that if he left without accomplishing that, someone would always hold that over his head. So he won that. He accomplished that goal in 2023, and that opens the door. Now no one can say anything. He accomplished everything that he set out to do. And you look at him, how much fun he was having riding Supercross, taking in all the sights in America. I think he's coming. I really do. The only way I think it wouldn't happen is if the Austria group, you know, the people behind the scenes, Pit Buyer or someone says, no, we need to keep you because we don't know how long Jeffrey Hurlings is going to be around. Maybe we need to keep you for the long term in that particular championship. But I think deep down, Prado wants to make.
Time for Rockstar Energy Husqvarna, the 250 team, as always, anchored by RJ Hampshire, who's renewed a new 2-year deal. We presume to stay in the 250 class, at least that's what they've said so far for him. He'll be a contender indoors and out as usual. The other news was a surprise. Guillaume Ferez, another discovery with Monster Energy Star Racing Yamaha, not going back to that team. I believe they would have kept him, but Rockstar obviously liked what they saw, and they signed him instead. The Spaniard is yet to race Supercross, so he's going to debut this year. And same thing with Casey Cochran, who was an amateur prospect for this team, but I don't think he was supposed to be here this early. He's going to race Supercross, not Futures, this year. To me, this is fast-tracked a little bit because his results have been good. So, real experiments here for this team. Neither one of these riders has raced Supercross yet.
Yeah, I think it's two completely different narratives when you look at that team, and we'll see how they line them up, which coast. But RJ is a championship contender, and that team expects him to be in that fight, winning races, and it really sets up nicely for him to be in that conversation. But for Guillaume Ferris, he's got to build that experience, try to figure out Monster Energy Supercross, and we don't know what to expect. Maybe it's much better than we're thinking. And then for Casey Cochran, he's just moving up. I think he has some time to figure things out. But again, remember, he was winning these futures races all year long in 2023. And we saw what that looked like for Haiden Deegan when he made that jump to the pro class. So interesting dynamics there, two completely different storylines when you really analyze that team.
450 class, this might be the most forgotten man on the depth chart. Malcolm Stewart was great in 2022, finished third in points, was great at the first 2 rounds last year, showed the speed to maybe win races, led a lot of Anaheim 1, and then tore his ACL. We haven't seen him on a bike since January. Quickly, you forget how fast he was going.
Yeah, I don't worry about Malcolm Stewart too much. He's had a lot of time to heal, a lot of time to get right, prepare, get back in shape. And you know that training program that he's under with Alden Baker is going to get him into shape. So I think the timing of the injury allowed for a lot of healing, recovery, and get back to 100%, because that's always the thing is like, okay, are they riding again? Sure. Are they going to make the first race? Sure. But what condition will they arrive in? I think we're going to see Malcolm Stewart back at 100%.
Yeah, and then hopefully that's the same with the Christian Craig, who got hurt last year pretty late in the Supercross season, and then came back really almost to fill a spot for Team USA at the Motocross of Nations. He was trying to be as ready as possible. I don't know if he was quite at 100% for that, but for sure he'll be ready for Anaheim. And continuation, it was kind of an incomplete grade as a rookie, as a 450 rider, JT.
Yeah, I think Christian will be fine. Getting to speak with him in France, I think he's in a really good place. You know, he was ready to race, maybe not at that level, and under those circumstances, you're not going to get the full picture, but he showed up there prepared, he was in shape, and now going into that, leaving there healthy, having, you know, almost 3 full months before he would need to be at Anaheim. I think we'll get the best of Christian Craig, and I think he also learned a lot. You look at those early rounds in 2023, it was a struggle, and this was a rider coming off of being the 250 West regional champion, and he was battling just to get inside the top 10. So I think that was a wake-up call. He's going to know what it's going to take, and he's not going to want to feel like that again in the month of January.
Well, what a difference a year makes when we look at the Red Bull KTM squad. Tom Vial, the 2-time motocross world champion from Europe, will be back for his 2nd year in Supercross. The big change is this spot. Juju, or Julian Beaumer, who was not a KTM rider at this time a year ago, was fast on a privateer Yamaha at the first Supercross Futures race of last year. So fast that KTM basically signed him right then and there, just for a Futures deal, just to develop him. And now he's a full factory rider less than a year later, taking the spot vacated by Max Vohland.
Yeah, he looks like he could be a breakout star. And I remember when they brought him over to the KTM test track, right away, he was as fast or faster than Max Vohland. That's the rumors that were coming out of that track. And I think they were like, hey, we're on to something here. We need to get this kid under contract. And yes, I fully agree that you're looking across the landscape. And yes, you know, kids are going to be fast. They'll be inside that top 10. But this could be a kid that really just jumps to the front and makes a splash a la Haiden Deegan. Now, that's a really big bar, and that's something, you know, it's a high ask. But I think for a kid like Beaumer, he has that talent, Monster Energy Supercross, to be a star right away.
But the biggest story of all is in the 450 division for this team. Cooper Webb out, Chase Sexton in. Now, look, when you have the talent and the resume of Chase Sexton, you have many options. He could have stayed at Honda. It wasn't like they gave him the boot because Jett Lawrence and Hunter Lawrence are moving up. I want to clarify that. I believe he did talk to Yamaha. Kawasaki had Anderson's spot open. And of course, he eventually landed here at KTM. So my question is, why did he see KTM as the one? Because I would feel if you're Sexton, you could pretty much go wherever you want. What do you think drew him to this team?
Well, I give Red Bull KTM a lot of credit because they acted nearly 18 months ago on this, and they knew that there was an opportunity with Chase Sexton. And myself, people in the media, we were hearing about Chase Sexton struggling with the motorcycle. When you think about that time, both Ken Roczen and Chase Sexton were struggling. Trey Kennard, who was a test rider, even mentioned that they went the wrong direction for 2022. Think about how long ago that was. They went the wrong direction in the offseason. They didn't get the settings right, and Chase Sexton was frustrated with the motorcycle, and KTM jumped at the opportunity. They said, hey, there could be an opportunity for you in 2024. We'd like to start talking now. and we heard rumors about a letter of intent being signed over the summer of 2022. Over a year ago, they had already got a letter of intent signed, right? And we'll never have confirmation of these things, but the signs were there, the rumblings that were going on. And this was just a huge coup. And I think their foresight and their willingness to be aggressive landed them the reigning Monster Energy Supercross champion for 2024.
Yeah, one other thing about this team's future, KTM has this side project where they introduce what they call the factory edition motorcycle. Their 2024 bike is already out and you can buy that. But I believe there might be a new generation bike, the factory edition, coming, and they usually don't show that until mid-December. So if you've seen some social media of Sexton on the bike now, that might not be the bike that he's racing come Anaheim, and it would be the same story for Aaron Plessinger. Now that looks like old news, but Plessinger's deal was up. KTM signed him to a new deal for 2024, and I remember Plessinger was hurt for most of last year, the previous season, 2022, and going into 23, everyone said, are you worried about getting a ride? And he said, if I perform like I know I should, there's nothing to worry about. He didn't get that elusive win, but he did well enough for KTM to want to bring him back.
Well, AP is one of those riders that everybody likes. He's a fan favorite. You know, he had that heartbreaking moment in Detroit last year. We almost got that win. But I find it very interesting that Red Bull KTM signed him to a one-year deal. And what do they have in mind for the 2025 season? Is there a rider they're looking at? Do they just want to keep their opportunities open if another rider comes, or somebody graduating from the 250 class that they want to sign? So keep an eye on that. But for AP, he's just got to keep his head down, worry about his own results. And if he performs in 2024, he goes out and wins a race, wins multiple races, he's going to land somewhere. You don't win races at that level and not have a factory ride. So whether it's at Red Bull KTM or elsewhere, I think it's really up to AP to determine that fate.
And now for perhaps the most accurate use of the phrase last but not least, we outlined Honda's plan for 2024. One of the greatest seasons any team has ever had, winning every major title they were going for in the traditional motocross and supercross campaigns. The only title they didn't win was the 250 SMX crown, and Hunter Lawrence was in that to the end until being injured in the finale. So this is so strange. Sexton wins the Monster Energy Supercross title, but was already moving on. They actually knew that as he won that title. But obviously, they're still in a great position. Jett Lawrence moving up to the 450 class full-time, and they've just announced officially what we already knew, was that Hunter Lawrence will also be moving up. And the 250 spots that the Lawrence brothers once had going to be filled by Joe Shimoda. That's a great pickup for them. And Chance Hymas, who is a part-time rookie last year, will be full-time. So let's talk 250 riders first. I mean, what a coup for Honda to lose both Jett and Hunter from the 250 class and get a guy like Shimoda to fill that spot. I mean, those are big shoes, but I guess you could say Shimoda has the big enough feet to fill that.
Well, it's going to be very interesting to see how Joe Shimoda handles this, because he's leaving a team, a multi-rider team, where there's a lot of different pushing and pulling about who's the guy, who's expected to be champion there. There's no question about that at the situation he's at now. Replacing Hunter Lawrence on that Honda HRC Factory 250, all eyes will be on him, and whichever coast he ends up on, I think Honda will expect him to win races and to be the champion. Now, as for Chance Hymas, I got an opportunity to spend some time with him recently, and he's just getting back on the motorcycle. But for him, he's hoping that things set up for him to race the East Coast. That will give him more time to prepare, be able to ride throughout November, December, and January before he has to line up. But this was a guy that was really hitting his stride. Led his first lap at the High Point National right before he injures himself that next week. But he remembers that. He knows what it felt like. He knows what it took to get to that level. And don't forget, he gets to practice and train with Hunter and Jett Lawrence every single day. So they're going to drag him forward, and he's going to build momentum and build speed just from being around that dynamic every single day.
And then the 450 class for Honda, as we said, it's going to be all Lawrence brothers. I don't believe there's a parallel in any sport, maybe the Williams sisters in tennis, but any sport. I'm talking not just racing, any sport, to have this. Both riders on the team are brothers, and there is a chance somewhere down the road that we're looking at the two best riders in the game being brothers. I mean, that's the level they got to in the 250 class, so it's possible in the 450s. This is going to be wild to see the heights, because I think the sky is obviously the limit when it comes to Hunter and Jett.
Yeah, and the storyline will be about Jett Lawrence, whether within our sport or externally. Jett is a superstar by every measure, and he deserves all of that. You look at his Pro Motocross Championship undefeated run. He goes on to win the Super Motocross World Championship. He deserves all of the accolades and more that we could bestow upon him. So I expect big things, as does everyone. I'm more curious to see how Hunter Lawrence transitions because, yes, he was, in my opinion, the best rider on the 250 class in 2023. Now, did he win the Super Motocross World Championship? No. He lost $484,000 along the way by not being able to wrap that up at the finale. But now he's jumping into the deep end of the pool. He's going to be amongst many, many former 250 champions. But I just think it will be interesting to see how he fits in. Where does his talent line up with that caliber of rider? Will he be in the battle with Aaron Plessinger and those riders maybe on the backside of the top 10, or does he immediately vault forward and try to battle for podiums right away? Now, only he can decide that, but I think it's one of the more underrated storylines to watch going into 2024.
Now, there will be a veteran rider, we believe, on a Honda 450, but not part of the factory team. This is very odd. Dylan Ferrandis, it's been chasing a ride really the whole year. We thought that he would end up as Roxon's teammate with Suzuki. Now we're hearing that might not happen. The latest rumor is that he might be part of the Phoenix Honda team, which will build a 450 program around him. Now, months ago, I think it was Ferrandis looking for a factory bike to maybe race under a different tent because the Honda factory team doesn't have room for him. But I don't even know if he's going to have the factory bike now. So this is super curious. We don't know the exact details. But as of now, Dylan Ferrandis racing for Phoenix Honda in the 450 class will be an additional Honda bike out of the racetrack. So now you know the teams and the players going into 2024. Here's where the races will be taking place. We'll first show you the Monster Energy Supercross schedule for 2024. Mostly the traditional venues and times that you're used to, but there are a few new places dropped into the schedule that'll be fun to watch. But what's also interesting, JT, a lot of the Western rounds are going to move up a little early on their start times to make it a little more hospitable. So you're not watching main events at 12:30 midnight time East Coast. So we'll see how that plays out. I know as living on the East Coast time myself, that is fantastic.
Yeah, it's going to be great. I think the more conducive it is to the bigger audience, the better. And for a guy like myself who likes to get to bed early, hey, I'm all for it. I think it's going to be a great step forward for the sport. And we're just going to have more eyeballs on it.
Yes, JT, you live 2 hours west of me, yet you go to bed earlier and wake up earlier than I do. So your Supercross schedule begins in Anaheim. It ends in Salt Lake City, as you'd expect. And more things you'd expect from the Pro Motocross calendar, which is really based on tradition. So when you look at these locations and dates, starting out at Fox Raceway in California and ending with the Ironman National in Indiana in August, these are the places you expect to go to middle of summer, going to High Point and Redbud, Millville, Minnesota, Southwick, whatnot, Unadilla in August. It's all based on tradition, that motocross calendar, the two moto format there. Now missing, we have not yet announced where the SMX races will take place. Yes, they will be back. 3 playoff rounds in the fall of 2024. I think they want to announce that around Anaheim. So that'll be interesting there. We'll get you to those. But really, JT, I think that's the main thing. The takeaway for SMX to me is whether you like the new races or not. And I think once we saw them, it's pretty hard not to like them. But whatever. We have everything else we've always had. We didn't take anything away. We're just adding.
Yeah, it's been a truly great addition to the sport. Those 3 extra Super Motocross World Championship playoff rounds. If you watched, you already know. If you were there, you already know. But it's going to be very interesting to see where we end up in 2024 because I was shocked to see some of the venues in 2023. So I think that's the one big piece left to fall into place.
So now you know the places and the faces for the 31-round Super Motocross World Championship coming up in 2024. And this is what I love about it, whether you love the idea of the 3 playoff rounds or not. And I think once you see it, it's pretty hard not to love it. But we didn't take anything away. We'll still have all the hype for Monster Energy Supercross Round 1 at Angel Stadium that we always do as we kick off the next 31-round championship, the Super Motocross World Championship. That's it for our show. We will be back with more SMX Insider. It's going to be real special. Our next episode, which will air December 7th, will cover media days at Angel Stadium. All the riders, all the teams will be there for media obligations. We'll be all over that. So that's a really special episode we'll do on site from the stadium. And then on December 21st, we'll have a season preview as we get ready for 2024. So it's coming up soon. We're going to see you at the races. But for now, thanks for watching.